Just getting going here. If you would, hit the like button, share a link to the show, subscribe, follow on X, on Rumble, YouTube, Odyssey, Pilled.net. You can find me there on X at TommyBorumJokes.com. Is that right? At x.com/TommyBorumJokes. That's right. Welcome. Still holding the mic up. I've yet to go to Best Buy and get an arm. Woke up to a flat tire this morning. How fun is that? Welcome and appreciate you hanging out with me again today. Lots to talk about, lots to go over if you haven't seen yet on your screen. The Department of War has finally claimed credit for the rumors of directed energy weapons. They've announced those are real. We have them. We're using them. They're active. So we have that to look at and talk about, as well as a few other things. The World Health Organization will be missing the United States in the future, so that's nice. The money that they have taken us for on a ride, for granted, however you'd like to phrase it, the World Health Organization and its members have used us like a piggy bank, like we're going to take on all the debt and the operational cost of the organization. And then what? What do we get out of it? A pandemic, a world-ending, apocalyptic pandemic? Try to scare all the old people to death and then claim it was the pandemic? Give all the kids the flu and then claim they're all sick with a pandemic? That's what we got out of the World Health Organization. That's what we got for our money before. So I'm not upset that we're not going to be paying for it any longer. And we're leaving the World Health Organization, it looks like, with a debt of our own. So if we're showing up every weekend to the same party and we continue to front load the bill and we're prepaying for everything, and every week someone says at the party, hey, I got you next week. I'll pay for it next week, but they never do. Eventually, you let everybody else stage the big party. You let them pay for everything. You finally get out of paying for it once. They call it a debt as you don't go to the party. You say, I'm not even going this week. We're done. We're done going to the party with you guys. You just take us for granted. You take us on a ride financially. We're done. We're not having it. And they say, well, we still have this party. We have a bill. And it's $260 million. That's what the World Health Organization is upset about. Here, I'll show you this from CNN. This says Trump administration completes U.S. split from the World Health Organization. And again, I ask, if you're upset about this, what did we get out of it, actually? The U.S. has completed its withdrawal from the World Health Organization, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services said on Thursday, finalizing a long-standing goal of U.S. President Donald Trump. Trump tried to leave the World Health Organization in his first term, then gave notice through an executive order on his first day of his second term that the U.S. would leave the organization. Yeah, we learned our lesson the first time. In the first term, he said, yeah, I think we're going to leave. I think we're going to leave the World Health Organization. Doesn't do much. We're not really doing anything to help. We're done. So he wants to leave it, and they say, shame on you for even suggesting that. Spring whatever trap we had laid early. And maybe it was even less quickly spread, COVID-19, than they wanted it to be. Maybe they were hoping that it would be like ravaging the United States all through the end of 2019 and 2020. It didn't spread as quickly as they thought it would. And then when it finally did, it almost didn't matter anymore because they were holding the hot potato after a stolen election. Any of that sound like it could be possible? Or just outright what happened, if we're being honest? The U.S. still owes, this is what's interesting to me, roughly $260 million to the World Health Organization. How? We were the meat and potatoes of it. I don't think anyone's going to argue with that. Again, if there's 10 people at the party, but one person is always paying the bill for everyone, and to save face and not to be disrespectful, and because you want everyone to be seen as peers, you say, hey, we're all equal. We're all the same here. When the waiter comes around, you guys order whatever you want. Doesn't matter that I'm paying for it. And at the other end of the table there, Macron, if you want to get some appetizers for the table and say, waiter, garçon, appetition, you want to order some escargot and some frog legs for the table, you go ahead and we'll still be paying for them, but you'll be the guy who looks like he's, bringing on the service. That's what the World Health Organization has been. It's a bunch of world leaders saying, look how great we are. Americans, do you mind paying for it again? Oh, look what we're going to do in Africa and in Haiti and in India and in wherever the fuck other places. We don't really care. It's all a big money pit. And they get paid. Who's paying? It's you and me. So finally, the United States says, we're out. We're not chipping in for the next operational budget, fiscal year, what have you. And that leaves them, as this kind of tries to dodge, but has to at least outline, it's a 1-year notice to leave. Well, they say, well, we're giving you your bill now then, and you have 1 year to pay it. Nice try. This says Trump tried to leave the World Health Organization during his first term, gave notice through an executive order on the first day of his second term that we'd be leaving. By law, I wonder whose law, the U.S. must give the World Health Organization 1 year notice, and in doing, pay all outstanding fees that they claim during that year before its departure. So it's this nice ball and chain. Financial fiduciary responsibility for all debts incurred by every other member nation at the World Health Organization that we would have to pay for. You can say, Tommy, that's not what they're saying. They didn't say it's every other member nation and we're having to foot the bill. It's just our part of it. But do a little bit of digging, ask a little bit further as to what piece of the pie we're responsible for at the UN. And when we take on debt from China to lend without interest to the EU, when we are propping up these global initiatives, the World Health Organization is really no different than the World Economic Forum, except that they have a stated motive that is different. It's just another vector of attack. They're trying to surround you from every single angle, economic, healthcare, medical, etc. And so this is that one, the latter two. They say the U.S. still owes the World Health Organization roughly $260 million. Yeah, and go fuck yourself with it, World Health Organization. We ain't paying. Legal experts say the U.S. is unlikely to pay, and the World Health Organization doesn't have a military. Yeah, The World Health Organization has little recourse to do anything about it because, as I've said, we are the World Health Organization. The United States is the UN. We make up like 61% of the voting power in all of the globalist decisions. So it doesn't really shock you then why Israel would have to have such influence in the U.S. and why everyone else would be happy to take petrodollars. If you don't, you're just part of the 30 to 40% of people who are gonna lose no matter what, and you can see it in the math. So you go, okay, if the U.S. and their cognates, their analogs, their different mouthpieces and puppets, I guess for a lack of a better term, for all the different American agents, operators around the world, the way that we have that 61% voting swing before any other country votes on major issues in the U.S. Maybe it's just over 50% now. But do you see where I am making the argument? If we already have the majority, we just need to convince the other people to choose to join this side so that we don't look like a tyrant. But we're going to be every time. If the United States stood against every other nation of the world and took a vote by the budget, we still win and have ultimate final say over what happens at The Hague and at the World Health Organization and at the UN and at the EU, even though we don't vote there. We're funding it. So here again, the United States on paper owes the World Health Organization $260 million. Other member nations wrote their their operational budgets. They wrote up their plans and their notice for what they need. Say Gambia needs $5 million for vaccine through the World Health Organization, and they're not paying for it. They write up that that's their plan. They, submit their proposal, and the World Health Organization comes back and says, we made some adjustments. We made it 7 million, and we're going to front the whole thing. Here's all your vaccines. And in reality, the World Health Organization might spend 2 million at Pfizer to get those $7 million valued vaccines. And where's that 5 million go? To the people running the grift. So they wrote up their budgets. They submitted it. It totaled up to $260 million. And the United States said, let me see that one. Let me see. Not paying it. And what was the other one? Also not paying it. CNN reached out to the World Health Organization for comment. They say, as a matter of law, it is very clear the United States cannot officially withdraw from the U.S. unless it pays an outstanding financial obligations. Yeah? Who's going to make me? Who's going to make you? It's Donald Trump. He's going to go, no, I don't think so. If you want to party without us, you can pay the bill. You can go to the liquor store and pick up the boxes of booze by yourself. We don't need to take you. We don't need to drive you. You don't need daddy's credit card. But the World Health Organization has no power to force the United States to pay what it owes. And it's really kind of an argument to be made that it owes anything. If the hostage finally escapes from the captor, right? If the captive finally gets away from the captor can't sue them civilly and say, they are a direct factor resulting in my loss of business income. I was whoring this person out. I was making them a cam girl, but they escaped, right? Hear me out. This is an odd metaphor, but just run with me for a second. The United States is a cam girl that escaped from Andrew Tate's compound. And the World Health Organization, the pimp, is saying, hey, who let my bottom bitch out? Huh? Who gonna bring me my money? So the pimp, the World Health Organization, is mad that his bottom bitch done run off and got married. And that's the United States. The Health and Human Services Agency left the door open to some continued collaboration. However, asked if the U.S. would participate in the upcoming World Health Organization-led meeting to decide the composition of the next year's flu vaccines. Hey, we got 52 cards in a deck and we need to pick our 4 or 5 favorites, our brands for this year's flu. We can't, it's like roulette. The scientists are going to pick the vaccines that are going to help. And then those are going to be ones that go around and ravage all the people and get it. And because they pick a few, not just one, it doesn't actually inoculate anybody. It says, okay, everyone, here's 5 hot potatoes. Now dance. Pass them around back and forth to each other. All right, when we stop the music, no one has a chair? Terrible. During a call with reporters on Thursday, a senior administration official said the United States has not been getting much return for our value on our money or on the personnel that we've been giving. The World Health Organization. Go figure. That $260 million that we've been giving them, not actually much of a value that we're getting back. So we're not going to participate in the meeting that dictates the strains of flu that they release. But Tommy, they're not releasing the flu. They're releasing the vaccines. You can think of it that way. That's fine. That isn't how the vaccines work, but that's fine. We've seen a couple different ways that if you still trust the Pfizers and the Modernas and the big vaccine manufacturers who are also paid by the government to put those in your arms and in your children and in the food and everywhere else, they're paid by the government. It's subsidized, but they still have to check the box to get the money. If you believe those guys who have no incentive to be honest with you, who have no incentive to give you an honest product that works, They have no incentive to do that whatsoever. They have an incentive to check a box, move on. Check a box, stack a number, move on. Cash a check. If you believe them, I got a bridge to sell you. From The Independent, Trump completes the United States withdrawal from the World Health Organization. Here's what it means and why the experts are worried. And that should have you smiling. Like you slept with a hanger in your mouth last night on a Friday. Here you should be happy. From The Independent, because they're worried. They're freaking out, so you should be rejoicing. The U.S. owes more than $130 million to the World Health Organization, and guess what? It's double that, and we ain't paying. The United States has formally completed its withdrawal from the WHO, a move that has drawn sharp criticism and raised concerns about global health security. Isn't that interesting? They say now the whole world could be in jeopardy. Our health security globally is threatened because the United States quit. So clearly, we're not just making up a quarter of the World Health Organization or 30% or 40%, but we're making up such a huge proportion of the budget, such a big piece of the bill being paid by Uncle Sam, that when we leave, the whole world, experts across the board agree, our global health security is now threatened. They don't just say, yikes, sucks to be Americans and maybe Canadians and Mexicans because they're neighbors, but wow, America's going to have a tough century ahead of it with health crises. They're not saying that. They're saying, oh no, now the world is at stake. So maybe adding some credibility to the argument that we were being pimped out and ridden, taken for a ride by the world over. The decision comes as the U.S. reportedly owes the Global Health Agency more than $130 million. Officials within Donald Trump's administration have conceded that unresolved issues remain, including the potential loss of access to crucial international data. We have the NSA and we have Israel and they have Pegasus, so we'll be just fine. We have that data, even if you don't believe you're giving it to us, we'll have it. Believe me. That could provide early warnings of future pandemics. So what they're saying, hey, if you leave the World Health Organization, we're going to plan another pandemic behind your back. Public health law expert Lawrence Gostin, whom you heard from in the previous article, from Georgetown University warned that the withdrawal could, or would, severely hamper the international community's ability to respond to new outbreaks. Hey, guess what? It's been doing a real bang-up job the last decade or so, and we've never spent more money than we have now, right, in the World Health Organization's budget. Not in the 90s, not in the early 2000s. We've never spent more. We've never contributed more to the international community's ability to fight new outbreaks. And you've done a worse and worse and worse and worse job. So get fucked. He continues, in my opinion, it's the most ruinous presidential decision in my lifetime. Well, thankfully, you're just an expert from Georgetown University, and we'll hopefully never hear from you again. I hope ICE goes and arrests that guy. The World Health Organization in the United Nations Specialized Health Agency, or rather it is the United Nations Specialized Health Agency. So as I've been saying, the United States just pays for the UN's operational budget, and within it, the World Health Organization that comes with additional strings, regulations, and other hoops to jump through. And isn't it really funny when someone says, hey, we're issuing you a fine because you missed this requirement from the World Health Organization? So the country pays like a $1 million penalty to the World Health Organization. And on paper, we are paying the budget for the agency to claim international supremacy and authority over us, subverting our own sovereignty, so that they can issue you a traffic ticket. Hey, you had a lot of people flying and you don't require masks. We're going to have a little bit of a penalty here that you pay, and it helps us with our marketing budget. We already paid for that. Now we're paying on top. So you can imagine, it's like the city guy driving around, getting a ticket for speeding, then a ticket for parking. He's got to pay for his insurance, got to pay for the registration. He pays for the cop to ticket him. That's what we're doing here with the World Health Organization. And so Trump has said, hey, global health cops, I'm taking your badge away. Maybe that's the best way to look at it. And that's why, again, you should be happy. This says nearly every country in the world is a member, or put another way, a hostage. If you have to behave a certain way to be a member, and they require you to be a member to have any of the access to the other economic zones, benefits, etc., if they won't trade with you, period, you will not be a trade partner, because we will only trade with member nations who we know are healthy. We need to get a healthy product when shipped from your nation, so you got to be a member of the World Health Organization. Not that big a deal, right? In 2026, if you're a country that's exporting a product at all, you should be able to join the World Health Organization and pay the membership fee and jump through the membership hoops, right? And be conditioned to be an accepted little hostage. You don't see it that way because you're paying a membership. You think you're a member of a community. Everyone in the world nearly is forced into it, has to comply. So the United States has said, well, we're going to be done funding this. On average, the U.S. pays $111 million a year in member dues. That's just a baseline fee to even have this conversation. Our member dues, and it's not proportionate. We're picking up the tab for a lot of other people there with $111 million. With the World Health Organization, that's our membership due, and around $570 million more in annual voluntary contributions. So what would that include? Like I just said, if they run around and ticket you for a health ticket, the World Health Organization issues the United States or a series of organizations like Doctors Without Borders, they get a ticket. You didn't fill out your third deep state application paperwork in triplicate, so you get a knock against you. Here's your ticket. You get a health ticket from the World Health Organization, and Trump just stripped the health cops of their baton and of their ability to commit global piracy. Like, that's a big deal. Hey, we were going to have about $500 million coming in from the United States that we trick them into giving us up freely. We tell them, hey, it's $111 million to be in the club. But now that they're in the club, we say, oh, another incidental. Oh, it's another incidental. And they end up paying, total looks like, almost $700 million to the World Health Organization. So maybe that's why Trump is saying no more. Here's an easy tariff win. With a stroke of a pen, we leave the World Health Organization. We just made $700 million. We were expecting to pay it over here. Now we're not going to pay it. We just made $700 million. In an executive order issued immediately after taking office, Mr. Trump said the U.S. was withdrawing from the World Health Organization because of the organization's mishandling of the COVID-19 pandemic, and probably more of an indictment of them having strategized and choreographed in the background the responses to it to blame Trump and make him look the worst for having probably the best response of all. Quote, failure to adopt urgently needed reforms is the biggest on paper reason, the official reason, and quote, its inability to demonstrate independence from the inappropriate political influence of other World Health Organization member states. So we're not going to pay for a party that we don't have any say in, and that every weekend becomes a let's mock the U.S. fest. Right? Because a half an hour ago, I'm saying to you, we wouldn't want to be paying for a weekly party where everyone takes advantage. It'd be one thing if we just said, it's no big deal. We can afford it. We're the only millionaire in our friend group, so we can pay for the party and it's no big deal. And let's not make everyone feel uncomfortable about money. But turns out they all can afford it. They just think you're stupid for thinking that they don't have the money for their own health organization dues. If you think you're the only one that can afford it, it's like the white savior complex applied globally. The dumb white American thinks he's going to go into his own pocket, call his bank, and go into debt to pay for everyone else to have what he has, thinking they're just too stupid. They can't afford it on their own. I feel bad. In reality, they're just sitting quietly while you fork out on your own for all of them, what they could have just done themselves. They're taking advantage of you. And so the United States is not having any more of it. The World Health Organization, like other public health organizations, made costly mistakes during the pandemic including at one point advising people against wearing masks. It also asserted that COVID-19 was not ever airborne, a stance it did not officially reverse until 2024. Another Trump administration complaint was that none of the World Health Organization's chief executives, there have been 9 since the organization was created in 1948. What other bad things happened in 1948 that we should be looking at? None of those chiefs of the World Health Organization have been Americans. And you saw the most recent one that looks like he shits, showers, shaves, and eats with the same unwashed hand. It's insulting to ask anyone in America, but anyone around the world, to pay for this humiliation ritual. It's insulting. So we're not doing it anymore. I like this. The next thing we need to do is get rid of the Centers for Disease Control, the US CDC. You haven't heard much about the CDC recently, huh? They're kind of flying under the radar, hoping that they don't get a bop. Administration officials view this as unfair that we have not had an American leading the organization, given how much the World Health Organization relies on U.S. financial contributions and on U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention personnel. So again, the World Health Organization has nothing to operate with but a global glove to slip over an American hand and then march around as if it's their own might. And it isn't, and we're done. So now they're left holding a limp glove going, well, what can I do with this? Slap yourself with it. Experts say the U.S. exit could cripple numerous global health initiatives, including the effort to eradicate polio, maternal and child health programs, and research to identify new viral threats. Dr. Ronald Nahas, president of the Infectious Diseases Society of America. That's probably a real fun party to go to, huh? You want to go to the Christmas party I'm going to? Yeah, I got the invite from the Infectious Diseases Society of America. Meet you under the mistletoe. They called the United States withdrawal short-sighted and misguided and said it's scientifically reckless. Fuck. I hate this fucking corded, stupid fucking shit. No, we're having fun. It's okay. The U.S. has ceased official participation in the World Health Organization-sponsored committees, leadership bodies, and governance structures, as well as the technical working groups. So all of it. We're out of everything. It also signals the United States is no longer participating in global flu information sharing that guides vaccination decisions. I wonder if part of this is like a big long con to begin vaccinating U.S. Patients, Americans, in their doctor's offices and at the pharmacy and at the Walgreens. I wonder if we could just start to replace all the vaccines with saline solution. Never make an announcement. Don't tell anyone. Let the pro-vaccine people think that it's all good and safe again and you're an idiot for ever being anti-vax, and let them all swap it. I wonder if that's what they're doing here, just to buy themselves some time and let another generation continue to pump themselves full of heavy metals. Trump administration officials say they already have public health relationships with many of these countries and are working to ensure direct sharing of all of the vaccine information we could ever need, rather than having the World Health Organization serve as a middleman. But U.S. officials did not give specifics about how many such arrangements are in place. Well, yeah, you want to get specifics on how we know each country, how we're going to reach out to each of our embassies? Here from Unilad.com, Trump explains the reason for the bruise on his hand. If you're going to have a knockout, drag-out battle over the World Health Organization, you might want to glove up. You can see Trump here has had, I would guess, some intravenous work done. That looks like it's bruising from having an IV placed. Right? That is a spot where you get an IV. You see that? You see that? The president of the United States has once more been spotted with a large bruise on his hand. So while we're leaving the World Health Organization, it appears he might have a health issue. Maybe he's just blood doping. You ever thought of that? The president of the United States has given a candid excuse for the bruising on his hand that was recently spotted during his appearance at the World Economic Forum in Switzerland. Trump joined several major political figures in Davos this week for the World Economic Forum, but it wasn't just his plans for Greenland that got people talking, but rather the large bruise that was on his hand. The bruising was spotted on the back of Trump's left hand during a signing ceremony for the Board of Peace yesterday, January 22nd. Happy birthday, Patrick, by the way, today. The mark looked very similar to the one that POTUS had back in March of last year, which sparked concerns about Trump's health at the time. So if we've seen this before and much time has passed and nothing has ever become of it, then maybe there's nothing to worry about, especially when you've seen other old people have medical procedures in the past and have a vein poked with a needle. Sometimes you have some bruising. The mark looks very similar to that you'd expect to see. The president's now addressed the most recent bruising on his hand while aboard Air Force One on his way back to the United States. Supposedly, the daily aspirin he takes can lead to him bruising more easily. He explained, "They say take aspirin if you like your heart, but don't take aspirin if you don't want to have a little bruising. I take the big aspirin." The doctor could easily have just told him, like, this is a pretty good excuse. Like, technically, yes, that is a fact. You can say that. So Trump added, per Reuters, the doctor said, "You don't have to take that, sir. You're very healthy." And I said, "I'm not taking any chances." So he takes a daily big ol' horse aspirin. You're supposed to take a baby aspirin every day as a preventative after 50. So I'm told. Grandfather died at 62 from a major coronary heart attack. So, and they told him beforehand, you should be taking aspirin every day. Instead, he took one after, had a Coke, and died. You don't have to take that, sir. You're very healthy. You don't need to take an aspirin every day, but Trump says he does. And so if you take an aspirin every day, maybe you bruise like a peach. But this also looks like a spot where you would get a bruise from a medical procedure, from something being placed in a vein. You see all the veins in the hand? Wouldn't it be great to place an IV there? Place a lead? Dr. Deepak Bhatt. I'm Deepak in the bot. Dr. Deepak Bhatt explained on the website that, quote, aspirin decreases the ability of tiny cell fragments in the blood, platelets, from clumping together and forming clots. Yeah, it keeps your blood thin. It's a blood thinner. It's how you don't have a heart attack. You know, your blood doesn't clog up your heart because it's super thin. The platelets don't stick together. But it also means you have a hard time scabbing or having bleeding stop if you get a cut. That also means if you have an internal bleeding or if you have bleeding under the skin, a thrombosis, it's just going to go. But it can make you bleed a little more easily, including the below the skin bleeding seen in bruising. Small cuts may take a little bit longer than usual to stop bleeding. Sometimes people also say their gums bleed more easily when they floss or brush their teeth, starting with low-dose aspirin. Yeah, or with freaking nicotine pouches, am I right? Just kidding. An electric toothbrush can help in that regard. Yeah, got to keep the gingivitis away, fellas. Don't take aspirin unless you need it. Don't take anything unless you need it. As I drink my Red Bull. And I look for my Velo. Trump's explanation comes after last year, Caroline Leavitt, said the bruising on his hand was from constantly working and shaking hands with people all day, every day. Well, that's a real candy-ass sweet response, like a carnival response. Retarded, if you were to believe it. But there you go. That's what they said. Hey, last year, Caroline Leavitt, I think that's her name, said, that's just from shaking hands. He's so strong that Donald Trump just shakes hands with everybody, and in doing, got a big bruise on his hand, but he's totally fine. Just take that for what it's worth next time she says something else. Donald Trump comes clean about the heavy bruise left on his hand, or on his left hand, as health rumors mount. No, I'm good, he says. And I would add that's also, the left hand is like the one that's close to your heart. If you were having a heart attack, and you felt it and you were like, guys, my left hand is super tight. Maybe we should turn around. And they go, okay, we got a full med bay. Let's get in there. And they get into Air Force One and they say, it's an electrical issue. No worry. Electrical issue, old plane, bad plane, very bad. Got to get Boeing to replace the plane. Meanwhile, they're putting an IV in his hand and they're throwing the sensors, the little nodes all over, and they're doing EKG testing. And then they say, sir, did you just have 2 Big Macs and a large fry and a Coke? Yeah, Diet Coke. Okay. Yeah, this isn't a heart attack. This is indigestion. Okay, let's get over to Davos then. And that's probably what happened. And in the process, he got a little boo-boo, got a bruise. I hope. Bruising on your hand, are you okay? One reporter asked. He brushed off concerns without hesitation, replying, very good. When pressed again, they said, you're good? He said, I clipped it on the table, so I put it a little, what do you call it? Put a little cream on it, but I clipped it. I would say I take aspirin if you like your heart, but don't take aspirin if you don't want to have a little bruising. So he hit his hand on a table. He walked by a desk or a table. He turned, hit his hand. Dude, I did that the other day. I had something on my hand, like I think it was Parmesan or something, and I threw my hand away from myself to like shake it free, like to shake the little powdered cheese off. But in doing, I hit the corner of the counter, not the flat surface of the counter, not the side, but the corner. And I looked at my knuckle and thought for sure I had chipped the bone on it. I am still like, now it still hurts, still red, and it's still hurting, Charlie. So I get it, Donald. If you just hit your hand real hard against a countertop, I get it. I understand. I've stubbed my toe this week and probably scared the dogs, swearing up a storm. Probably the Hispanic neighbors are probably learning very interesting vulgar English. You stub your toe and it sounds like Wile E. Coyote or Goofy. Yahoo! But he just rakes, with a K, his hand against the Oval Office desk. They said, sir, do you have everything you need to go to Davos? He said, let me see. Do I have everything? I need my ALP pouches. Oh, and then they look, and sure enough, he just smacked his hand into the desk, reaching for his ALPs. I would love ALP to be a sponsor of my little show here. Hey, ALP pouches. Go to ALP pouch, search ALP pouch, get nicotined up, get upgraded in your life. I don't know. Try it. So maybe that's what happened. Trump just reached for something, smacked his hand on the desk and said, "Opa," and then looked and said, "Ah, fuck." See, I'm trying not to have heart attacks. So that means I'm going to bruise. And here I just smashed my hand on a table. Maybe that is what it is. Who knows? I remember when my grandma was in the hospital in her last years, she had the thing in the hand all the time. And when I had surgery a couple of years back, I had the thing in the wrist. Just a flick of the wrist. They put the IV in my wrist. So if he's got a little bruise on the backside of his hand, like the flat of his hand, where all those veins run through, wouldn't be surprising. And here's the other thing. Hand is super easy to get at in an emergency. And it's hard to find a vein if someone's blood pressure just dropped, they passed out, and they're like, sir, oh my God, let's get an IV, let's do this, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, oh. Okay, and they grab his hand, and they try to get the left hand, because it's the one that is closest from the artery to the heart, to the artery from the heart. Yeah. Oxygenated blood pumps through the left arm first, then the right. So if they're going to try to do, anyways, so they get the IV in the hand, and if it is an emergency, they might have to grip the forearm and build pressure in the veins, like block up the veins of the heart, not of the heart, of the hand. You grip the wrist tight to try to get the veins in the hand to pop, and then when you see those veins start to bulge up under the skin, you can identify where they are and stick the IV. Really hard to stick an IV in a noodly vein under the skin with barely any blood pumping through it. That's super flat and squiggly, so you get those veins good and pumped up, and then you stick a needle. If you're doing all of that in an emergency with an unconscious president as the plane is turning around, you might have a couple bruises from the first couple places where you stuck the needle and it didn't go, or wasn't a vein, or missed it, or went straight through, or whatever else. I like to think about all those possibilities because, like we just heard, Caroline Leavitt said, oh yeah, he gets a bruise because he shakes hands with people. That could be. It's possible. You shake someone's hand and you're gripping their hand and they're gripping you, but you're taking daily aspirin. You can't take the grip. You can give it out with your muscles, but your skin can't take it back. Maybe he did have a bruise from shaking hands. Maybe that is true. It takes a lot more energy for them to come up with a dumb lie, though. International Business Times publishes this morning. The list of 57 House Republicans who voted with Democrats to let the government disable your car. This is the privacy advocates decry the kill switch mandate as government overreach, while safety groups tout life-saving potential. This is not the same thing as Ralph Nader and his stupid seatbelts. This is not making sure that you don't become a projectile when you kill yourself in a car accident by flying out of your car. This is saying the government should be able to, at any time, allow local law enforcement access to your vehicle to kill it, flip the switch, turn it off, stop it, whatever. And in 20 years, they will argue that the kill switch really should be a control switch, because we don't simply want to kill the vehicle's power and turn it off, but we want to turn it around or lock the doors, drive it straight to the police department, make it pull over and lock up and wait for police to arrive or whatever. So it's not simply, kill the engine in an emergency, but it's control the vehicle and the occupants. If you happen to be stationed overseas with General Petraeus and others, and you're embedded for an article that you're writing, and it's kind of like a puff piece, but while you're stationed, some shit flies, awry, goes sideways, and so you end up being kind of bunkered in with the general for a while longer than you expected, and you hear him say a bunch of shit about Obama, how he hates him, he's retarded, he wouldn't want to work for him, he's a bad commander-in-chief, and all the rest. And you go home and then you publish things that the general said that were off the record that you overheard and witnessed because you were there. He helps protect your life while shit goes south, right? You're overseas. You're into shit. Is this still going? Yeah. The military is saving you as just a little journalist. There we go. And you thank them all the people that you were with who risked their lives to keep you safe while you're over there writing. You're a little writer. The way that you thank them is by writing them up and by name, attributing quotes to them, saying, this general really doesn't think very highly of the commander-in-chief and said these things about Obama and said that he doesn't know what he's doing and said that he's retarded and said that he's a bitch and said all these other things. If you do something like that, they can wirelessly take control of your vehicle through the chip that operates it on the computer, that runs the electronics of the car. And they can, instead of just, making it do funny things or, change the radio without your control or whatever, they'll instead send it 100 miles an hour, doors locked, into a tree. They will maybe work on the car without you aware of it, put an explosive in it, and then as you're driving, rig the car, blow it up without you ever able to slow the car, stop it, whatever. I mean, imagine you're driving your car and the brakes are cut. Like, not just that the brake line snaps, but that you can feel as soon as you get going, the brake line is deliberately cut. It's gone. You have no way to stop. You can coast, you can throw it into a low gear, you can try to, back and forth, slow the car down with friction, all the other things, you run into the wall. What happens, though, if your car doesn't stop accelerating? The pedal is stuck all the way down, not mechanically, but because something else has hijacked the drivetrain of your vehicle. And now you're just in the car, along for the ride. That chip that controls every single part of that car, that we are right now saying China makes all the chips, maybe some people in Taiwan. That's why it's important we keep them independent. NVIDIA is a chip maker. They do video, but we use chips for just simple things like driving a car. Could someone wirelessly back end get into a chip and just make sure that all the airbag mechanisms are turned off? Collision imminent. You hit a tree, you hit something, you hit a sidewall, but instead of the airbags going off and the seatbelt tightening when it's supposed to with resistance, if it all just doesn't happen and goes loose, and your car is driving you at 100 or 200 or whatever miles an hour, seems like it's a black pill, a Black Mirror kind of idea, right? Not likely to happen to little old you. Why would it? Maybe in the future, it's not the government that hijacks these chips, but it's, third-party hackers and malicious black hats who are going to target CEOs, and they're committing espionage and sabotage. And so it's less interesting to go after Jeff Bezos's phone and hack it and try to get photos of him and blackmail him, because AI exists. And moreover, he could just whack you as soon as you try to approach him. Instead, maybe you take over his vehicle and you whack him. All the people who would think like this are already trying to develop this tech so that it doesn't get developed around them and they don't get stung on it first. And so our government says, now that we think we have a lead on AI, we think we've got the lock on it, Americans will dominate AI. Now let's make sure that every single car has a chip in it. Not that we could, if we had to, be creative to take over full control of and have it be a conspiracy mystery of how did they do that. No, make it not a bug, but a feature. It's not going to take a genius to break into the car and take it over and control it, or run you off into a ditch and kill you, or just stop the vehicle for law enforcement. Now it'll just be that law enforcement can do it. It's part of it. This is not a, again, bug, but a feature. The kill switch in vehicles that allows the government to do exactly what I'm describing. They won't sell it to you like that, but that's what it is. The amendment, authored by Representative Thomas Massie of Kentucky, targets provisions in the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2026, that's H.R. 7148, the funding implementation of Section 24220 of the 2021 Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, that's Joe Biden's bullshit. The measure that Thomas Massie put up failed 164 to 268, with 160 Republicans voting in favor and 57 joining 211 Democrats in opposition. So this got opposed by virtually it's every Democrat and about 60 Republicans to make sure this did not go through. Thomas Massie puts up an amendment to block funding for this kill switch mandate, and they said, nope, make sure it goes through. Representative Keith Self of Texas, who supported the Massie amendment, responded sharply on social media, saying, unbelievably disturbing. 57 House Republicans just joined all of the Democrats to ensure the government can shut off your car whenever it wants. Those 57 House Republicans are the Israeli sellouts. How the technology would work. This says in 2021, the infrastructure law ordered that by 2026, all new passenger vehicles must include advanced drunk and impaired driving prevention tech. And you've heard about this, right? You've heard that in the future, your car is going to constantly be watching you and monitoring you with a camera and a microphone inside the vehicle. And they'll be watching the driver. And if it thinks you're asleep or you're texting or you're drunk, it might just stop or pull over or give you a warning saying, we're pulling you over. We're stopping your car. The vehicle responds without delay from a computer that registers impairment. So this says the rule is firm. Once impairment is registered, the vehicle responds without delay. Moreover, lawmakers can ensure that detection triggers immediate intervention. What does that mean? If you trigger a sensor in your vehicle, it is immediately intervened with, remotely, wirelessly, without an officer. Ahead of official rules, car makers can rely on cameras, how a person steers, or air sensors that spot alcohol. They're going to put ventilation sensors. They're going to put sensors in the vents and test the air you're breathing so that if you go, shut the door, seatbelt on, long day, and it goes,
did you just have a beer? You can't drive home yet.
Unreal. When signs appear that someone might not be able to drive safely, the system might just stop the engine. Instead of waiting for the National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration to act, some vehicle brands are already testing out these checks inside the vehicle. All the auto manufacturers are going to see this and think, we're going to develop the technology to control all those factors. So if and when the idiot lawmakers decide, hey, we made it illegal to have unfettered air in the car. Now it has to be that you can, as soon as the dumbass Democrats add a regulation, the auto manufacturers can't just be sitting on their hands with a bunch of cars they can't sell. So they're going to make sure this stuff exists. We have air sensors. We have airbag detectors. We have this, that, the other thing. We have a cigarette lighter that now won't light anything because it's not allowed to. All those things. You know, they'll have the little outlet, but now it'll be, smoke safe. So it'll work for everything but those little button cigarette lighters. They're going to come up with all the tech and put it in the car and wait for the New World Order to make it legal and then mandatory and then required in all new vehicles. And then they're going to go, oh, well, we already have it. Representative Harriet Hageman, we like her, out of Wyoming, backing the amendment from Thomas Massie, previously characterized this mandate as a massive and likely unconstitutional rule and an invasion of privacy on a greater scale than we are used to seeing from our government. Yeah, imagine that. Imagine they say, you can buy whatever car you want and you can drive it, but you have to register it, insure it, and then constantly have the reporting mechanism inside the dash up to date because the government wants to constantly be testing the air quality inside the cabin of the vehicle. We want to make sure that there's no expired or aspired, right? Breathed alkaloids. We want to make sure that no one is aspiring alkaloids. No one's sweating or breathing any kind of toxins that would be illegal substances. And they want to put these sensors in the dash. And I would assume they're going to put the sensors in the seat belt, and they'll put a couple of sensors in the seat cushion itself, not just to make sure that there's a proper weight on the seat, but to be sure that the skin doesn't have any drugs or other oils in it, whatever. How dystopian is this nonsense? And it's not to say that this is now made legal by this act. It is a mandate that now vehicle manufacturers must have this monitoring. Went from, is it possible, to now it's mandatory that we do it. Forget if you should, forget if it's legal. It's mandatory now. It's the law. You must. So here are the sellouts from the GOP that voted this time. And there are many more sellouts, but these are the 57 that were given the marching orders to cross the line this time. Mark Amodei, Don Bacon, Stephanie Bice, Gus Bilirakis, Mike Bost, Ken Calvert, John Carter, Tom Cole, Mario Diaz-Balart, Neil Dunn, Chuck Edwards, Jake Elzy, Randy Feenstra, Randy Fine, Chuck Fleischman, Brian Fitzpatrick, Vince Fong, Andrew Garbarino, Carlos Jimenez, French Hill, Jeff Hurd, Monica Jack, John James, fuck you, John James, David Joyce, Tom Keene, Mike Kelly, Jen Kiggins, Kevin Kiley, Young Kim, Gregory Sabin, King, whatever. I'm not going to name all the rest of these people. You get the point. What this means for car buyers, one way or another. I'm on off on Joe. The larger funding bill moved forward by a vote of 341 to 88. So the requirement to stay active and on track remains for these manufacturers. Now, people who buy new cars after 2026, 2027 and on will find them equipped with built-in monitors to watch how drivers act and could stop the car. They have the power to stop your car if they wanted to. It may never be the law that they require you to have your vehicle stopped, There may be a law only in California that says once your vehicle crosses into California, if your eyes leave the road for more than 3 seconds at a time consecutively, that the car goes beep, 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 beep. And after another 2 seconds, it starts to slow. So you could be driving and then enter California and be looking at the map and you have your car fucking stop. Doesn't do it anywhere else, but watch the future and they'll piece it out like that. It'll be piecemeal. They'll go New York and California now are using the monitors that have been put into all new vehicles. It'll say it's 2030 and your 15-minute city has just made it mandatory that those sensors are online. And so your vehicle will have had these sensors for a while. First, they'll just use, consumer settings. So your new Toyota 2027 RAV4 will have the lane assist, and it will also have eye control or, eye contact assistance. It'll help. It'll be an accessibility thing. Like it'll be helping you with driver awareness. It'll be a driver safety thing that maybe even your insurance company requires you have turned on in your vehicle. You'll get the most savings for your auto insurance if you have this turned on in your vehicle. It'll just be for you and them. And then the biggest states of nasty communist blue color will come up with new legislation to say, now we're taking advantage of these monitors that already exist. We mandate that the cars have them. We allow people to play with the new feature while we come up with new legislation while they've kind of soaked in and let the water boil a little bit. And now, hey guys, remember how your cars all have those monitors? We're using them now. That's what's going to happen. It's going to be only so slow. I bet 2030 states like California and New York and Colorado will have laws that take advantage of these new monitors. And their excuse will be, the monitors exist. We might as well, make them work for the people. These monitors exist and the manufacturers are using data farmed by the drivers already. We might as well have these drivers at least benefit some from all these monitors. So let's create new laws to help them. These monitors only give data to the big car companies. We didn't ask them for that. Yep, they literally did. They're asking for them right now. They're mandating that the manufacturers put these monitors in. The manufacturers are going to get data from them. They'll sell that data. They'll make a fortune selling you a data farmer. Your car will now be farming data on you. How you drive, what you look at, what you will and won't interrupt your driving to respond to on your phone. Forget marketing. How about geolocation and all other kinds of data? All of the data that your phone gets on you while you drive, now your car will be soaking up 10 times over. And they'll wait for you to think that it's a good idea and that actually you can use some of this data to your advantage before they make a law requiring you to. That's what I think about that. Pretty cool, huh? Of Emmanuel Macron to be wearing these aviators to hide whatever bruising he's got. It's not on his hand. He can't hide it there. How Macron's Davos sunglasses spoke to the politics of friction with Trump. See, they can't even just say, this is unseen before. We've never seen someone so fucked up on drugs that they can't show their pupils, that it's so obvious that they're high that they can't show their eyes. We've never seen a world leader get so blitzed that he does this. They won't say it that way. They got to blame Trump for Emmanuel Macron being a drunk or a high ass. The power of gathering world leaders in Davos, Switzerland, the reflective shades worn by French President Emmanuel Macron captured attention in the way that words wouldn't. Hiding and unsightly, but what Macron says is a benign medical issue with his right eye. Yeah, he got banged by his father/mother/wife so badly that he popped a blood vessel in his eyeball. Or he's done so much coke that he blew the blood vessels in his eye. Either way, it looks crazy that he's got this villain looking eyeball that instead of being white is red. So he's wearing sunglasses. Hiding an unsightly, benign medical issue with his eyeball. The sunglasses bled into the newsfeed, triggering a jab from the US President Trump, spawning memes and AI-generated spoofs of Macron as a fighter jet pilot set to Kenny Loggins' Danger Zone track from the Tom Cruise blockbuster Top Gun. You couldn't have just said, yeah, people made Top Gun memes. Danger Zone. These beautiful sunglasses, Trump said in his Davos address. What the hell happened? Here's what to know about the now famous shades and what they say about Macron and politics. Are you fucking kidding me? The AP thinks that this is some big symbol. It's a symbol of what this means. Oh my God, it's so gay. The CIA could come up with worse. Could not come up with worse. The shades were made by a French firm. They're Pacific S01 models. They don't come cheap, retailing for $775 on the manufacturer's website. So he's wearing fancy things to Davos. Insane. Absolutely insane. Oh. I'm not going to give that any more air. Who cares? Who cares what kind of sunglasses Macron is wearing? The point is, he's either on drugs or he's been beaten by his husband. Which one is cooler for you? Let me do one thing here. Let me look and see. First of all, thank you for being here too. If you would hit the like, share a link to the show, subscribe. I want to eventually get the audio squared away here, but just getting some consistency, making sure we're up every day, doing something online. We are live. Let's see. Rumble, Odyssey, X, Pilled, YouTube. Sweet. Let's do this. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to do two things. Give me 2 minutes. Be right back. All right. Appreciate your patience. Just dropping back. Had to do a couple things. Get the dog out of my face for 1 second. And as soon as I get back over here, guess where she is? Right back there again. But we love the dog, don't we? But if you have one, then you know exactly what I mean. You love them so much, they're under your feet all the fucking time. Department of War, CTO, posts this. Hope you like this. light speed lethality, directed energy dominant. That is their post. Looks nice, right? Familiar? They wrote, yes, the Department of War has directed energy weapons. They have the do. We do the do. The DEWs, we have them, you want them. The directed energy weapons, they say, yes, we are scaling them, which means we don't just have, as we talked about the other day, from Roswell's 1947 UFO crash, the laser pointers and integrated circuitry and chips and microprocessors and ways to use the transistor like never before. Not just all that, not just taking a nuclear fission technology and then saying, well, we can turn it into a bomb or we can turn it into life-saving MRI technology. They're now saying, hey, 80 some odd years later, 65 years later, we have had, and now for 20, we've been honing and maintaining and perfecting this new technology called directed energy, like taking a laser and then going, and then deciding, hey, what if we didn't actually have a beam at all? Because if we're seeing them using a beam form, then what they now have is probably coordinated energy. So it's not directed. We don't have to see a point and then from A to B create a straight line of energy, which is what this is. What if we just picked a point in space and created the energy there and didn't have to have a from A to B, like those flying orbs that we think the government does teleportation with? If they just created coordination points, if they just picked points in the air and then across time moved those points, that's what you would see those orbs being. They don't have to be a physical flying anything. So we have directed energy weapons, huh? That's what the Department of Energy, the Department of War is saying here. Let me see here if I can pull up. Where is it? Yes. Okay. Hold, please, while we look for directed energy weapon run through. Because we know we've got them. And this is the infographics show. Saw this the other day. Thought this might be worth watching, and now I'm happy we are watching it. So this is from the infographics show. The U.S. used an invisible weapon in Venezuela. And you've heard it called Havana Syndrome, and you've heard of other frequency energy weapons. This is a form of directed energy weapon. This isn't the Jewish space lasers that would start a fire on Maui, for instance. But this is absolutely, if you were to scale it like the government is telling you that they are, where'd it go? If you look at this post and you say, okay, light speed lethality, what does that mean? It means they can look at a place or pick a spot on the globe within range of this weapon technology, pick a spot, and then beam it with such, and you can say light, but that's not what it is. It's energy. Light is a form of energy. Heat is another form of energy. Radiation is a form of energy. So they're going to beam light or heat, like Havana Syndrome, or sound, like you've heard. Oh, I heard voices in my head, and then I got really, really hot, and I ran out of space. All these different wavelengths and frequencies that they can pick to hit that spot with at the speed of light. That is what this is. So then they're not sending waves from here to there, because that would take time. They're choosing what or how most to excite the waves that are already there, particles that are already existing in that spot with. They pick a coordination, they pick a spot in space-time, right there, their target, and then they can choose to excite the electrons right there in that spot in a spectrum, on a frequency spectrum, and they choose and they can say, well, we can make it light, we can make it heat, we can make it a different thing, we can beam it with radio, whatever. That's what this is, as far as I understand it. So to help us understand it further,
that nobody could see, but everyone felt. The U.S. raid to capture Nicolas Maduro was a calculated strike that brought down the head of a regime in a matter of hours. But Operation Absolute Resolve wasn't just a mission, it was a demonstration. As the specialized Delta Force teams moved through the Venezuelan capital of Caracas, the usual noise of war was missing. There were no bombs falling, no cannons firing, and almost no regular gunfights. Instead, top-secret tech that nobody would talk about changed how people fought. It used invisible waves to shut down the human body, leaving hundreds of loyal Maduro guards helpless, confused, and bleeding from their ears and noses, all before a single American boot even hit the ground.
Yeah, dude, it's like the attack on Dune. It's like the attack on Arrakis, right? Who watched Dune, huh? The power of spice is the power overall. Okay. You remember the dumb movie Dune based on the really great book series that I've got behind me? It was fine. It was a good movie. It was fine. We had zero good movies for years and years. And so when one comes along that looks kind of decent because it's colored right, it looks fine. But then they had to pick a... Anyways. Why is all of every cast of every movie, they're like, okay, yes, the lead hero is a white. Granted, he's a gay twink. But in these characters, a straight white. But then everyone else has to be a mix of some sort. And gay. So that was Dune. Dune was like, hey, what if Aryans were real and existed and were in space? And then they made a movie with a bunch of brown people. I digress. I do understand that the subterranean people that ride the worms, they're definitely supposed to be the Jews. I get all that. I get it all. Maybe someone wants to explain Dune to me. Okay.
Witnesses claimed to be the victims of a powerful device during the raid, one that they likened to an intense sound wave that left defenders collapsed on the ground and suffering severe symptoms. Venezuelan personnel said it felt as if their heads were under extreme pressure, like their skulls were being squeezed from the inside. Some later said that it felt as if the air itself had turned hostile. These claims spread like wildfire online, and they were
It sounds like the Aztecs or the Mayans when they're describing things they've never experienced before. It sounds like the plagues of the Old Testament. The air itself turned poisonous, and our heads felt like they were exploding from the inside, the pressure and the sound, and it was like we heard God's voice going, wow, 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 wow. Like the Hypnotoad, and we were just gone. We laid down our weapons and cried in the fetal position. Hey, in the 60s and 70s, when people were abducted by aliens, didn't they say the same thing? We heard lights and there were flashes and then there was a heat and all of a sudden it was blinding and then I was whisked away and I don't remember anything else but being tested on and then dropped back off in my, whatever. I'm in my Chevelle.
Amplified across social media platforms. They gained enough attention, they were mentioned publicly by the White House press secretary. Despite this, U.S. authorities...
The United States could have been abducting people and making them think it was aliens through hypnosis. Or the aliens were abducting people, fine. But also the U.S. has reverse engineered their tech. And so now that we see the American military weaponizing alien technology, people see the parallels between the stories from the survivors of the attacks using that tech and, the experiencers and the claimed survivors of alien abduction. The abductees say the same kinds of things, similar things, as some of these people have described.
Authorities never officially confirmed the deployment of any such technology, leaving the account suspended in a gray zone between testimony and denial. And that certainly only made it more frightening. Since 2019, the CIA has been busy working behind the scenes. They obtained prized intelligence from defectors and used satellites to watch silently. They even made secret deals with neighbors in Colombia to map every single escape tunnel under the palace.
Yo, if you're Venezuela and you hear that, you're like, look, we got our own problems, okay? We're dealing with the Americans. We have our own issues, okay? But Colombia, you sold us out? You hear that and you're like, okay, forget war with the Americans. We just got fucking abductees running around. We got problems in the Venezuelan military, so we're not going to war with the Americans. But Colombia? Man, can you imagine that? Your neighbor gets a knock on the door and they're like, oh, fuck, who is it? They open the door and it's the Americans pointing a gun in your mouth. And they're saying, guess what? We're going to raid your neighbors tomorrow. Create a detailed map of the apartment as it's laid out. We're coming in. Colombia just sold Venezuela down a river. And then America is like, hey, guess what? We didn't do it alone. Your neighbors fucked you. Man, no. I mean, I guess Trump really does like turning neighbor against neighbor. JK.
Washington didn't just want him, they had spent years squeezing the life out of his world. Sanctions had collapsed the country's economy. Families fled across the borders by the millions, leaving behind ghost towns. The raid wasn't just a sudden choice, it was the last act of a long-term fight. Grabbing Maduro...
Yeah, right. Well, if you're just going to explain that, why don't we instead watch from the U.S. Government Accountability Office, Directed Energy Weapons.
The Department of Defense spends about $1 billion annually developing directed energy weapons, such as high-energy lasers and high-powered microwaves. These weapons can disrupt or destroy their targets at the speed of light. For example, DoD has developed high-energy lasers that have successfully shot down drones, but speed isn't their only advantage. They're also less expensive per use than traditional weapons like guns and missiles. Despite those potential advantages, DoD has had trouble getting these technologies out of the lab and into service. The Army has developed a detailed transition plan to support moving these weapons into the next stages of development. We recommended that the Navy and the Air Force develop similar plans.
Crazy town. That was what they were willing to admit, though they spend $1 billion a year developing these technologies. You know it's got to be more than $1 billion. Probably $1 billion a week spent doing stuff like this. So that's the direct energy weapons by the United States, published 2 years ago. Why would it be then that our government is publishing this kind of thing today? Is it just saber rattling? Is it just rah rah? If this is something that would actually be not just useful and tactical and, advantageous, but if this was like deciding factor technology, if this was the best thing that we had to offer on the battlefield, we would not be showing it. It would not be seen. People would not be seeing an X post about it. So this is not going to be like the backstop of our defenses. This is just saying, hey, by the way, your best thing can't be our run-of-the-mill thing we've had for 20 odd years. I think that's what that's saying. Now we're going to look at a lady who's high as hell, probably higher than Macron. And maybe this helps to explain why he was wearing those sunglasses. Because, holy Lord, look at her pupils. Look at the bloodshot, glassy-eyed, done as much eye drops as you possibly can, and now your super glossy, glazed over look. The pupils are they're constricted.
The hospital after working a shift and been having a lot of thoughts about what RFK Jr. has done to our healthcare system and how we're going to navigate.
So I had typed, you look like you're the reason they have to do randoms on your floor. This is Dr. Annie Andrews, MD. And she looks gacked out of her mind. It looks like she's either on some benzodiazepines or some stimulants of some. She's on a painkiller as well as an upper. How do you get your pupils to be that constricted? I get that you work under fluorescence all day and your eyes might be strained, but I was in school. I was a student. They don't do that. So the doctors are on drugs. The military are playing with alien tech, frying each other's brains. They've got kill switches baked into every single brand new car from here on out in the United States. That list of Republicans who opted to vote with Democrats to ensure that the big deep state would always be able to have a kill switch in your vehicle, you can just rest assured that these are all people owned by Israel. Because what else does it mean to be a part of the deep state nowadays? You have no integrity, no credibility, and you're not trying to just be rich on your own because you'd be making more money. If you were to enter politics just trying to make money, right now the best business model for you would be to do everything the American people want and nothing that any foreign country wants. If you wanted to make more money in politics, you wouldn't sell out to the foreign investors and take a payday for the cheap thing. You'd hold your integrity and preserve that, and on principle, cash that in and make way more in earnest, make more sincerely from the American people giving you money for not taking the paycheck from Israel. But no one ever thought to do that. Even Donald Trump got, buzzed one in his ear, and then they said, okay, well, we'll play ball. Did want to mention this. I'd be remiss if we, went live at all today and didn't at least talk about the Ice Ice Baby. The detainment of the 5-year-old boy in Minneapolis, drawing international attention and support for his family. This is the Minnesota Star Tribune. The editor of this publication should be arrested as an information terrorist. This says a Columbia Heights preschooler was detained this week. Really? Was he babysat? He's not been charged. He's not detained. You don't detain a minor when they're not even the suspect of having a crime being committed, right? If you pull over an adult at 11:30 at night, they're driving their car. The police officer suspects them of drunk driving. They're over the double yellow. They're swerving. They're coming to an incomplete stop at a stop sign. They're failing to use a turn signal. They're driving as if they're a drunk. And so the cop throws the lights on, pulls them over, begins to do some sobriety tests, finds the driver is drunk, does a breathalyzer, confirms, and sits the driver in the back seat of the squad car, and then calls for backup. Because why? The driver, the drunk, had a child in the back seat. And Tom Homan has used this example before when being accused of separating families at the border, saying criminals separate themselves from their children every day in their actions. When someone is committing a crime and they have their child in tow, when they get arrested, they get separated from the child at the jail. The child goes to sit with CPS and protective services and waits to go to a foster family for the night or whatever until someone can take the child who is related. So here, if you have an illegal immigrant holed up in the house, refusing to come out to the bus stop or refusing to come out to meet where they typically would greet the kids after school, and instead ICE agents are standing right there, holding the children right here saying, we have children who are unattended, who did not get met by their parent today after school. The parent is hiding in that house, waiting, and they don't want to come out because they know we're here. What else do you call that? The left is going to say they're using a child as a pawn to draw out as bait the illegals. And the people on the right, the conservatives, say here's a parent who should not be here, who is using their child as leverage. The illegal immigrant is pawning their child, literally, as emotional leverage to try to extort the public. Hey, the public cares a lot about us having kids. If we don't have kids, if we're just here as adults grifting and stealing from the public, they're not going to care so much. But if we present ourselves as families and we put our kids in the schools and have these people pay for our kid to get educated, why wouldn't we leave our kid at the curb? Let ICE worry about our kid for 10 minutes. The ICE people are threatening us. Let the people feel sympathetic for the parent who just dogged their kid out on the curb, left their child out in the freezing cold crying because the parent doesn't want to get arrested for the crime that they know they've committed. Think about that. Imagine you're the kid. You're the 5-year-old kid. You're in the backseat of a car. Your parent puts you in the backseat of a car. They're driving, and now they get in a high-speed chase, and they refuse to pull over. The cops finally pull the driver over, manage to stop them safely. Don't you know that driver is now getting a endangerment of a child charge? If a parent tries to fight the police with the kid right there, they may lose custody of the child. People understand this, right? In America, this is how this works, in part because, as Ryan Matta's documentary highlighted, Never in America, the documentary on CPS trafficking children openly, part of it is that that's their incentive. Why wouldn't CPS want to take away children? But they want to take away children from Americans, break your spirit and your morale, and break the good soul and spirit of that American child. Here, this is really no different. The illegal immigrant sees that the child is more sympathetic from the public than they are from their own parent. Like they hear this right. People of Minnesota, of Minneapolis, and of the country see this little Liam, the 5-year-old boy, being detained, and their heart breaks for that kid because they know the kid didn't choose to have a parent who broke into the country illegally and have them here. That's the kid. The kid has no responsibility in any of that. But your heart breaks for the kid, not because he's being traumatized by ICE. Your heart breaks for the kid because the kid has such a shit lousy parent that the parent is putting their child through that. What, for the last number of months, the parents didn't know that ICE was moving through the country and that they didn't think, hey, we don't want our child to be traumatized. You know, if ICE came and they did a raid and they pulled us out of work or they arrested us at our home, yeah, it'd be tough. We'd deal with it. But we have a 5-year-old child. If they experience that, if he experiences that, that might be really traumatizing. We should just move now. Remember, DHS Kristi Noem was offering them thousands of dollars to self-deport. They were going to get paid to go home and do the right thing, and they didn't. Instead, they said, nah, risk it. Let's roll the dice. And if anyone gets traumatized, it'll just be our fucking kid. That's how they see this. So don't you for a second now think that the detainment of the 5-year-old is what we need to be worried about. But they are over in Minneapolis. That's what they're concerned with. That's how they publish this. The Washington Examiner says ICE detention of children in operations targeting parents sparks backlash. What's ICE supposed to do? See a 5-year-old with negative 10-degree temps and say, not our responsibility, not our little kid, not our niño. If ICE neglected the child, you'd have that be the story. Instead, ICE is responsibly caring for a minor who has no guardian. I should rephrase. No responsible, law-abiding guardian who wants to take responsibility for and custody of the child. They're saying, hey, will the parent of this child please come out of the home? And they're checking the drapes going, no, we're not coming out. They're still out there. They're going to arrest us. People are saying, well, why didn't they just let the child go? Why didn't they let the kid continue to just walk up into the house? They're standing off the curb away, monitoring the property. They're at the bus stop. They see the children coming around, and guess what? Sorry, you don't get to say that the society and the systems should all work properly for you. But anytime we want to have them work for the people who pay for them all, to remove you from them, you go, no. The systems don't get to work when they're holding up justice, only when I am abusing them. So the illegal immigrants can come here and take every dollar under the welfare systems that work for them. They don't work, oddly enough, when you or I need to apply for them, but they work for them. Without a social security number, they get to come and abuse. And then, when caught, they're going to nitpick and say, you didn't dot your I's and cross your T's and do everything by the book. And really, it wasn't very moral of you to tell my child that they had to stand by because there wasn't technically a guardian taking care of them after school while I was hiding out from you. Somehow it's always going to be the ICE agent's problem. If the child is left and never picked up after school and never looked after by the guardian, because the guardian's hiding out from the cops. And if it's a bank robber, you don't go, well, we should at least let the bank robber go home to his child and make sure the children are taken care of and then worry about the money the guy just robbed from the bank. No. You go and arrest the guy and you say, yeah, put the kids in protective custody until we can figure out where they're going to go for the night. If a single parent is arrested in the commission of a crime and they have their child with them, that child does not just go to jail with dad for the night. Sorry, I have a dog and a cat wrestling over a box behind me, and it's the loudest thing I've ever heard that I have not been trying to play myself. You know, it'd be one thing if I had background sounds that I were intending, that I remembered to play, but I don't. Here from CNN, they write, 5-year-old boy taken by ICE in Minneapolis area being held with father at Texas facility. Oh, okay, so that's a little bit more honest, but why don't you say it this way? Father, illegal immigrant, extorts and leverages his own son, trying to use his 5-year-old son as a human shield against ICE arrest. A 5-year-old was taken by federal agents from the driveway of his Metro Minneapolis home Tuesday after returning from preschool, is being held with his father at an Immigrations and Customs Enforcement facility in Texas, according to school district officials and a family attorney. The preschooler, 5-year-old Liam Ramos, was removed from the family's running car, said Zena Stenvik. Well, there you go. Whether he's drunk driving or he's illegal in the country, either way, if you're pulled out of your car and arrested, we can't just leave your car sitting there running with a 5-year-old in the back seat. The left wants to look at this as if they took the kid, held him hostage, put a gun to his head and said, "Yo, Liam's dad, come out or else." Like in a scene of Lost. "Well, we're going to kill your kid unless you come out." And it was the opposite. We found a 5-year-old in the back of a running vehicle, and we've got an illegal immigrant who was driving, who is the father and who is technically the guardian of the child. Well, what do? You obviously take care of the child as well. You're taking the illegal immigrant into custody. He's under arrest. And then you're taking protective custody of a minor who's 5. And they say, yeah, ICE detained a 5-year-old. Can you believe it? Ramos is one of the latest children caught up in the Trump administration's mass deportation campaign out of Minnesota and across the country. The campaign has been marked by aggressive tactics, by armed masked agents, the apprehension of U.S. citizens who are in the way and interfering. You only get apprehended if you're in the way. And crackdowns on protesters as battles intensify over the legality of the actions. No, it's no battle. It's you are mad that they are doing this, enforcing the law. Another adult living in the home was outside and begged the agents to let them take care of the small child, but was refused. Yeah, funny how that works. The law enforcement is, under Trump, not letting just any old adult claim a Hispanic child. That's a good thing. They're taking care of the kid, whether you want to believe it or not. And you can say, hey, Tommy, the deep state is always going to be running the CPS. And so this kid, whether the ICE agents were in the right or not to put him into protective custody, whoever ends up with the kid is not going to be protecting him. The person in the house living with them might have been a relative, might have been their aunt or someone related by marriage, another adult who says, I live with that kid. I will watch the kid. Yeah, you can arrest his dad, but leave the kid at his house. And ICE says, no, we're going to go put him in CPS. And maybe at the end of the week, the kid is moved and he's taken into a foster house in Texas and he gets abused. There's two sides to this. An agent, quote, led him to the door, directed him to knock on the door, asked to be let in order to see if anyone else was home. Essentially using a 5-year-old as bait, says Stenvik. Apparently. ICE did not and has never used a child as bait. The child was abandoned at the front of their house. And instead of being met, like I had said before, instead of the adult coming out and meeting the children or picking them up from school like they would, instead the child is left alone, abandoned. So they go, okay, well, let's escort you home. Maybe someone's at your house. Kid goes up to the door, lets himself in. They look around. There's no adult. That's an abandonment issue, in addition to the illegal immigration issue. The Department of Homeland Security said the father was the intended target of the operations. 2 were eventually taken into custody together. We conduct legal, ethical, and moral law enforcement missions here in Minneapolis, says Greg Bovino, the Border Patrol commander at large. He said yesterday, I didn't detain a 5-year-old, and we're going to continue with the law enforcement mission, period. The boy's father does not appear to have a criminal record in Minnesota so far, other than the record of having broken into the country illegally and then using resources and welfare dollars. The father, Adrian Alexander Canejo Arias, and his young son are being held at the South Texas Family Residential Center in Dilly Dilly, Texas, at an ICE facility for families. Oh, so keep crying about how the children are victims, yet they're housed with their family at an ICE facility in Dilly, Texas. Here from The Hill. ICE detains 5-year-old Minnesota boy. How about this? Put it another way. Victim of illegal immigrant human trafficking. He's a 5-year-old in the custody of illegal immigrants here in the United States. Is he a victim of being trafficked across the border? Is he a victim of having been born here and trafficked around in the United States by people who have no record at all of being here? Hard to find a criminal if they're not on paper to begin with. If you're playing a game of Guess Who, and the answer is someone I don't have a picture of, pretty hard for me to guess them. So if you have a bunch of illegal immigrants here, and they have children, you can bet, because it's a fact, some of them will be abused. Did the 5-year-old kid who gets neglected and left behind right outside the door, no one answers, no one's home, people pretend they're not home, people pretend they don't know him because he's with ICE, and they know, if we go answer the door and take responsibility for our child, we also have to take responsibility for our crimes. Well, let's do neither. No responsibility for the kid, no responsibility for the criminals. Same person. And they say ICE took the kid. Would you watch a Law and Order SVU episode with Benson and Stabler going after to save a kid from being assaulted? And then say, wow, I just watched this Law and Order episode. It was really weird. The New York Police Department just came and abducted a girl from her boyfriend. Or were they saving a child from being molested and raped? ICE detains a 5-year-old. Really? ICE detained a 5-year-old? Or did ICE put into protective custody a small child, a 5-year-old, barely older than a toddler, right? A toddler is still 5. Preschool or kindergarten, he's coming home from a little class. So he's got his Spider-Man backpack on, and he gets loaded up into an SUV from ICE because his parents refuse to acknowledge him because that would require them opening the door and then answering to law enforcement who's there. Federal agents in Minnesota grabbed a 5-year-old boy as he returned home from school and took him to a facility in Texas. Local officials and a family lawyer claim. So what actually happened, HuffPost? Don't just tell us what one person or two people claim happened. Just tell us what actually happened. We have the facts. Liam Conejo Ramos is the 4th student from the Columbia Heights School District, just north of Minneapolis, to have been swept up by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement during the Trump administration's crackdown on immigrants, District Superintendent Zena Stenvik said. So that's the person who was giving you quotes in this one, Stenvik, saying, yeah, they grabbed him. They walked him around, essentially using him as bait. That woman is the assistant superintendent. Stenvik claimed Liam was detained in his family's driveway by ICE after being driven home by his father, whom the Department of Homeland Security said was the subject of a targeted ICE operation. So the father drives the child home. Dad is driving the kid in the backseat of the car. ICE is in the driveway. And as dad pulls up, ICE says, great, park your car, get out, we're taking you. And the woman inside the house says, leave the boy, he can stay home. And they said, technically, we don't know that at all. He's being trafficked right now, being driven around by an illegal immigrant. You say he lives here. We don't know what he does here when he lives here. For all you know, this could be a 5-year-old boy being raped every night at that house. This woman, who is not related to him, could be his pimp mom. The father could have had this could be one of his kids, and he doesn't give a shit, and he's going to make this kid of his live with this woman, go to the local schools every day, and every night he sells them out on Facebook Marketplace. We have no idea. So law enforcement says, we did not find the illegal immigrant returning to the home where the child was already living safely. We found the illegal immigrant in possession of a child. So we're going to collect the child as well and make sure the child's welfare is looked after. And of course, the left is upset with that. They're upset he wasn't aborted. 5-year-old asylum seeker, so he's not a citizen either. There you go. He's been trafficked into the country. Thank you. Come again. What are you doing over there? 5-year-old asylum seeker detained as ICE expands enforcement in Minnesota. Liam Conejo Ramos, 5, was taken into custody along with his father on Tuesday. He was being trafficked. A 5-year-old was in the back seat of a car driven by an illegal immigrant when ICE approached and apprehended the suspect, the target of their operation, the illegal immigrant driver and father of the boy who was being literally trafficked. Literally trafficked. They caught him in traffic. Okay, we're moving on. Illegal immigrants are also voting, in case you were convinced that they weren't because you were told so. From Andy No, here's some context from a post you may have seen on the Reddit Lies page the other day. A Redditor posted saying, "My case got denied. Guys, I need help and advice, please. I got registered to vote unlawfully back in 2020 at the DMV during a DL appointment, driver's license appointment. I went to my naturalization interview last year and found out about this registration. I can appeal, but I don't know if it'll be worth it. Please help me." So here's a person who's trying to get naturalized citizenship the correct way. They're living in the United States. They already have a work visa. They have a green card. They have a permit, all that stuff. They've been here long enough. They have their application for naturalized citizenship, and they find out, you're not a citizen, but you registered to vote at the DMV. And this person says, I remember I got registered to vote unlawfully at the DMV back in 2020 during a driver's license appointment. They registered me to vote then. But now that I'm trying to become a naturalized citizen, it's holding me up. And Andy No digs for context and lets you know. Oregon's DMV registered almost 2,000 ineligible people and non-citizens to vote. A number of non-citizens did end up voting, and the state attorney general, AG Dan Rayfield, declined to prosecute any of them. Yeah, when one person makes a mistake, it was a mistake. When two people make the same mistake, smiling gleefully and staring at you, you go, okay, that's an odd coincidence for the two of you to make the same mistake here. And then when 3 people make the same mistake, and 4 and 5 and 2,000? 2,000, you go, well, that's a conspiracy. But the state AG is in on the conspiracy, so he goes, nothing to see here, folks. You're all fine. It was just a mistake. That's the left Democrat Party right now. The people at the top are not hypnotized. They are the hypnotoads. They are going, wow, 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 hoping that you'll just go, oh, okay, yeah. Lose interest, lose energy, lose steam, lose morale. And then they win because no one ends up putting up a fight. You got 2,000 people that you're aware of voting illegally out of Portland. Here's another example. Feds failed to convict Chicago illegal immigrant who had allegedly put a $10,000 bounty on the border chief's head. Yeah, you heard that right. A federal jury found an alleged gangbanger not guilty of placing a high-priced bounty on one of the biggest faces of the Trump administration's illegal immigration crackdown, Juan Espinosa Martinez, a Mexican national living unlawfully, illegally in the United States, was found not guilty yesterday of placing a $10,000 hit on Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino. The illegal migrants defense team, paid for by you and I, argued during the 2-day trial that he was not actually a member of the notorious Latin Kings gang, and that his statements about the Bovino bounty were just him resharing neighborhood gossip. Really? He says something like, yo, the Latin Kings are putting a $10,000 bounty on him. And then they say, here's evidence of you putting out that hit. You, a member of the Latin Kings, claim publicly the Latin Kings want $10,000 paid on his head. And he goes, man, I'm not even in the organization, bro. I was just publishing shit. I was just resharing it, dog. I'm not the author. I'm a publisher. And then the jury said, okay, I guess it was just a mistake. Even though we all know what the fuck it is. They'll shoot you and say, oops, gun went off. Oops, hair trigger. My bad. And they go, don't let it happen again. Leftist judges and juries are empowering violent insurrection against the government in an effort to stop ICE from removing criminal alien invaders. The White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, Stephen Miller, an architect of the administration's immigration agenda, said in a public reaction to the verdict. Federal immigration authorities took Juan Espinosa Martinez into custody on October 6th in Burr Ridge, a suburb of Chicago, after a confidential source handed over Snapchat messages appearing to show Espinosa Martinez offering $2,000 for any info on Bovino's whereabouts and another $10,000 for killing him. Here's Juan sending $2,000 on info cuando lo agarraron. $10,000 if you take him down. LK, Latin Kings, on him. $2,000 on info for his location. $10,000 if you take him down. Latin Kings. All from Juan. And they say, yeah, he was just letting the recipient of the messages know about it. Like Don Lemon, he wasn't actually protesting and obstructing church services. He was just holding a cell phone in front of him, recording and live streaming. Therefore, he was just monitoring it. What happens if all 30 people were live streaming it? Are they all just witnesses to themselves? No. So that is kind of a bunk excuse. And same here. He can't say, I was just sharing that was a fact. Okay, point us to who else said it before you. Maybe that happened. But you think the jury cared? No, it was a 2-day trial. Day 1, state, present your evidence. Yeah, here it is. Here's him doing the thing. Here's him calling for information and saying he'll pay $2,000 for information on the whereabouts and $10,000 if you kill him. Ordering it and signing it off on as one of the Latin Kings. What's the defense? He claims he isn't in the gang and he was just reporting what he had heard in the hood, in the barrio. And the jury goes, good enough for us, let him off. Are you fucking retarded? He's here illegally. Is he not being deported on that alone? Nope, let him go. Frisco, we have a problem. A tale of two Friscos. And they're both fucked up. Here's Frisco, Colorado, Summit High School, having a protest where students scream into microphones about how horrible ICE is, calling for Donald Trump's ouster as a dictator. This is like monkey see, monkey do. They're just trying to aura farm. They have no idea, these dumbass kids, what they're even saying. But man, are they happy to yell it loud into a megaphone and sound like a revolutionary and shake their fist and be in the middle and say, we're going to have free chocolate milk. We're going to replace the water fountains with milk. We're going to have Gatorade and cookies at every lunch. Man, he's upset. And I can see why. Look at him. He thinks God cursed him to be alone forever. God, that sounds like Adolf Hitler. I wish he were cooler. That's all I got out of that. Okay, here's another Frisco, maybe a bigger problem. Adults behaving the same way. The mayor of Frisco, Texas, questioned on why his largest political donors are Indians not living in the United States.
150% increase in donations above $1,000 from people with Indian last names. That seems like a red flag to me. Now, let me ask a few questions to the mayor and city council that I don't expect you guys to answer, but I'm going to ask them anyway. Mayor Cheney, for 2023, why were 4 of your top donors Indian people not living in Frisco or even Collin County and donating $5,000 to you? I don't understand why someone would donate to a mayor that doesn't represent them unless that mayor represents business interests that make them money. I'm sure it's just a coincidence that all of you are in real estate business and those 4 donors have over 158 businesses registered in their name.
Well, that is both obvious open business and conspiracy. Yeah, technically, that's shady as all shit that the mayor is accepting those political donations from business owners who do not live in the area but have locations in it. But also think about it like you're a business owner and try to be, rational when you do. You're the business owner. You've got 5 gas stations along an interstate. 3 of them are in one county. And so you're going to make sure that you donate to the leadership in that county and make sure that that local city has a good mayor who doesn't pass things like sin taxes, like Fishback in Florida wants to make everything that you like illegal because he thinks it's a sin. On its face, that might be a good thing. You might hear that and go, good. Yeah, make nicotine and other tobacco products taxed higher. Good, because I don't smoke. And then they're going to say, well, what about alcohol? Well, don't tax that. I like that. Well, it's also a sin. Okay, tax that too. Tax cinema and adult cinema as well. OnlyFans is going to get taxed 90, 50, or whatever percent. So Fishback is doing the same thing in Florida, and it's all bullshit. It's pick and choose and letting, people decide what freedoms you have and what others do not. If you're a business owner and you say, I don't want a mayor coming in and deciding to implement countywide dry days. Oh, we're just not going to sell booze on these given days. On Sunday, we're not going to sell alcohol. We're going to be good Christians. And so we're not going to sell alcohol on any Sunday in our county. You might go, I'm not living in a dry county. And moreover, I don't live in that county next door, but they're even closer to doing this. I have 5 convenience stores there, or I own a liquor store there, or whatever the case may be. Is the face tracking working? So if the business owner has real estate and business and investments there, it does make sense for them to say, I want to have a local influence in politics. I'll spend the most I can to, give a good candidate a running shot at being mayor. Because the alternative is I don't spend $5,000 on a good mayor. I end up losing $20,000 in business income or in taxes or in new fees and regulations and whatever else. So as a business owner, that might make sense to spend as much money as you possibly can. It does not inherently make the mayor a bad person, right? If I'm a conservative, I say, I'm going to run for all the good things that all the good people want. I'm not going to do anything bad that the people don't want. I'm only going to do what the people want. And only if it's constitutional, period. I'm going to be the best mayor by operating as simply and as ineffectually locally as possible. If we do nothing, we can't hurt anything. And if the only things we do are those things that are driven by the people and are positive changes, then great, do that. And in doing that, businesses saw that and said, well, I need to give that guy money because he's going to be better for my business than the super strict commie who says he wants to make grocery stores free. That's not going to be good for business because I know how he's going to fund it. He's going to tax me. So I'm going to pay a pittance. I'm going to throw $5,000 as a donation to the good mayor candidate so I don't lose my ass with the bad one. And that does not mean that any single one of those people are inherently corrupt or evil or bad for putting money in politics. So for what it's worth, that's what I think of that. You let me know what you think in the comments or in the chat. Look to see that we are live yet still for the second hour heading in on X. We're live on Pilled. We're live on Odyssey. We're live on Rumble. And we're live over on YouTube. So that's where we've been. If you would, hit the like button, share a link to the show, subscribe, and follow on X at Tommy Borum Jokes. That's where you can find me there. Appreciate you hanging out. Enjoy your Friday night. It's almost 7. There's other shows that you can catch, and I'm going to go catch one as well and go let the dog out. Go have some... Can you hear the heat on? It was 1 degree. 1 degrees. It was 1 degree Fahrenheit when I woke up this morning. Took the dog out. She stepped in the snow, looked at her paws, disgusted, and then started to hold one at a time up like a lizard on hot sand, like refused to. So she's had a hard time making up her mind. Oh, I need to go out. And then she goes out and she goes, I think I'll just hold it, and runs back. And so I think with all the play with the cat over the box over there being allowed earlier, now she's ready to go. You ready to go? You come say hi? Yeah. Yeah. Here, come say hi.
Come say hi.
Come here. Say bye. Say bye-bye. Bye-bye. All right. See you later. Enjoy the next 90 seconds as I bid you adieu. Check the links in the description below or in the description of the show. allmylinks.com/AmericaFloats. There you will find a shop link, both from, I think, Bonfire and from Spring. Check out the Spring store. Pretty cool stuff there that you might enjoy, like this t-shirt. Some people were asking about, how do I get a new shirt? It's been years. I've worn it out. It's lost its mojo. So you can find it there in the description below. Appreciate that. We'll see you next time. Adios.